Have you ever opened your phone because you needed someone, typed a message like, "Hey, are you awake? I'm having a hard time," stared at it for a few seconds, and deleted it? Maybe you tried again. Do you have a minute? Delete. Never mind. It's nothing. And eventually you locked your phone, put it down, and decided you would deal with it yourself. The strange thing is, you might be the person everyone else comes to when life falls apart. You listen. You give advice. You answer the late-night call. You notice when someone gets unusually quiet. But when you're the one struggling, something changes. You disappear behind, "I'll handle it." Sometimes the hardest part of needing help isn't finding someone who cares. It's believing you're allowed to need them. So why can asking for help feel more uncomfortable than struggling alone? Before we get into it, if you enjoy understanding the psychology behind the things we do without realizing why, subscribe to the channel. That's exactly what we explore here. Now think about the role you tend to play in other people's lives. Maybe you're reliable, capable, independent, the person who doesn't create problems. People might even compliment you for it. "You're so strong. You always figure things out. I never have to worry about you." Those words can feel good. But if you hear them often enough, they can quietly become instructions. Strong people don't fall apart. Capable people figure it out. Independent people don't need anyone. And eventually, asking for help doesn't feel like a simple request anymore. Feels like breaking character. There's an important difference between being independent because you can be and being independent because depending on someone feels unsafe. From the outside, those two people can look exactly the same. Both are responsible. Both solve problems. Both get things done. But internally, one thinks, "I can handle this." The other thinks, "I have to handle this." And that one word changes everything. For some people, asking for help immediately creates a strange mental calculation. If I tell them what's happening, they'll worry. They already have enough problems. I don't want to ruin their day. What if they think I'm dramatic? What if they help me and now I owe them something? So you decide it's easier to carry the problem than to deal with the emotional cost of sharing it. This is where the fear of being a burden becomes especially powerful. Because the problem isn't always that you believe other people don't care. Sometimes you believe your needs are unusually expensive. Your friend is allowed to call you when they're overwhelmed. Your partner is allowed to need reassurance. Someone you love is allowed to say, "I can't do this alone today." But when you need the same thing, suddenly your brain has a completely different rulebook. What? Sometimes that rule was learned much earlier than we realize. Maybe you asked for comfort as a child and heard, "Not now." Maybe showing distress made an already overwhelmed parent even more overwhelmed. Maybe you shared something vulnerable and it was dismissed, mocked, or brought up against you later. Maybe someone repeatedly promised to be there and repeatedly wasn't. Or maybe nobody explicitly told you not to have needs. You simply watched the people around you survive by having as few needs as possible. A child doesn't need to consciously think, "I should become hyper-independent." The lesson can be much quieter. Things are easier when I need less. And at one point that lesson may have genuinely helped. If reaching out was unpredictable, relying on yourself gave you predictability. If vulnerability created conflict, privacy gave you control. If asking brought disappointment, expecting nothing protected you from being disappointed. That isn't necessarily a flaw in your personality. It can be an adaptation. But adaptations have an interesting problem. They can keep operating long after the environment that created them has changed. Emotional self-reliance can become like carrying your own emergency exit everywhere you go. It makes you feel safer because you know you can always escape alone. But eventually, you become so focused on your emergency exit that you stop noticing the doors other people are holding open. And there's another side to this that matters. Sometimes when someone asks, "How are you?" they really are just being polite. Not every question is an invitation to reveal your inner life. Not everybody deserves vulnerability. Not everybody is emotionally safe. And protecting your privacy can be healthy. The problem begins when your defenses stop recognizing the difference. A stranger asks, "How are you?" "I'm good." A coworker asks, "I'm good." Then a close friend notices you haven't been yourself and asks again, "Seriously? Are you okay?" "I'm good." Your partner can see something is wrong. "Talk to me." "Nothing. I've got it." At that point, the issue may no longer be that nobody cares. The issue is that the same defense is being used on everyone, including the people who may have earned something more honest. And that can create a very specific kind of loneliness. You become the strong one, the listener, the problem solver, the person everyone assumes will be okay. Then one day you look around and think, "Why does nobody check on me?" And sometimes that question is completely justified. But sometimes there's another question worth asking. When people have tried to check on me, what did I teach them? Because if every attempt to get closer is met with, "I'm fine. Don't worry about me," people may eventually believe you. Sometimes loneliness isn't the absence of people willing to enter. Sometimes it's living behind a door you've become exceptionally good at keeping closed. And if this is sounding familiar, tell me in the comments. What's harder for you, asking for help or accepting it when someone offers? And if you're getting value from this, take a second to like the video. It helps more people find these conversations. There's another reason asking for help can feel so strange. You may be much more comfortable giving than receiving. Think about it. When you help someone, you're still in control. You decide what to give. You decide how much. You decide when. You're useful, competent, needed. But receiving reverses the position. Now someone sees that you don't have everything under control. You have to reveal a need without knowing exactly how they'll respond. Will they understand? Will they minimize it? Will they judge you? Will they leave? That uncertainty is vulnerability. And for someone who learned to feel safest while being useful, receiving care can produce guilt, embarrassment, indebtedness, or even anxiety. Giving lets you control your value. Being vulnerable asks you to trust that you still have value when you're not useful. And that is much harder. So what do you actually do with this? Probably not what you think. You don't need to suddenly tell everyone everything. You don't need to force yourself into some massive emotional confession. And you definitely don't need to trust people who haven't earned it. Instead, try something smaller. Call it the 10% ask. The next time you're struggling, choose someone who has shown themselves to be reasonably safe and ask for 10% of what you normally keep to yourself. Not your entire story. Just 10%. Can I talk something through with you for 10 minutes? I don't really need advice. I just need someone to listen. Could you help me with this one thing? Or even, today has been harder than I'm letting on. Then pay attention to what actually happens. This matters because you're not only asking for help. You're collecting new evidence. Maybe part of you predicts that they'll be annoyed. But were they? Maybe you expect them to think you're weak. Did they? Maybe your mind tells you that having a need will immediately make you a burden. But what actually happened? Instead of automatically believing the prediction, compare it with the reality of the experience. Did they pull away? Or did they stay? Did they resent you? Or did they simply listen? Did asking for a little support create the disaster you expected? Or did something surprisingly ordinary happen? You needed someone and they were there? Sometimes the nervous system doesn't change because you explain to it that the world is safer now. It changes because you give it experiences that contradict what it learned before. One small request. One safe conversation. One moment where someone stays. Then another. But discernment still matters. The goal isn't to become dependent on everyone. It's to become better at recognizing who has earned access to the vulnerable parts of you. Safe people usually give you clues. They can listen without immediately making your experience about themselves. They respect a boundary when you set one. And most importantly, their behavior toward you doesn't suddenly change because they discovered you're human. Someone who mocks your vulnerability, spreads private information, repeatedly minimizes what you feel, or uses your weak moments against you is giving you information too. Pay attention to that information. Healing hyperindependence doesn't mean trusting everyone. It means becoming discerning enough that independence becomes a choice instead of a prison. And there's one question that can expose just how differently you treat yourself. Imagine someone you deeply love comes to you tonight with the exact problem you've been hiding. They tell you they're overwhelmed. They admit they don't know what to do. They ask if you have a few minutes. Would you look at them and think, what a burden? Would you think, this is pathetic? You should be able to handle this alone? Probably not. You might sit down. Listen. Maybe tell them they don't have to solve everything tonight. You might even feel grateful that they trusted you enough to tell you. So why does that compassion disappear when the person needing it is you? Why are the people you love allowed to be human while you're required to be useful? Your independence may have protected you. It may have made you resourceful, reliable, resilient, and incredibly capable. You don't have to lose any of that. The goal isn't to become helpless. The goal is to add another option. Because real independence isn't proving that you never need anyone. It's knowing you can survive alone without believing you always have to. So imagine that phone again. The message you typed. The pause. The instinct to delete it. Maybe next time, you don't have to send your whole story. Maybe the message can simply say, "Hey, do you have a minute?" And then you let someone answer. Maybe asking for help isn't the opposite of strength. Maybe sometimes it's what strength looks like after it no longer has anything to prove. Before you go, tell me in the comments which is hardest for you. Asking for help, accepting help when it's offered, or believing someone genuinely wants to help. And if this video gave you something to think about, leave a like. Then watch the video appearing on your screen right now. It goes deeper into another psychological pattern that may be shaping the way you relate to yourself and the people around you without you even realizing it.